a name I have not spoken the name of in quite some time. Synology. Hexos NAS operating system disclosure. So I recently invested in the creation of a user-friendly NAS software that you can just install on your own hardware without being locked into someone's hardware ecosystem. That's going to be relevant in a moment. First, let's talk about what happened. A couple of days ago, Synology's Plus series of NAS systems no longer allowed the use of non-Synology or non-certified drives to get the full set of features on their NAS. Instead,
certified hard drives.
Yeah. Instead, customers will be required to buy the company's branded hard drives, which, by the way, if you've ever... Yeah. If you know anything about company branded hard drives, like HP hard drives, HP doesn't make hard drives.
Not at all.
And so typically these vendor-locked hard drives are just normal hard drives, but with a custom firmware on them and a sticker that locks them so that you have to buy them directly from the vendor. Users that choose to use non-certified drives, they'll still work and they'll still be able to store data, but apparently they will lose the following: showing estimated drive health reports, volume-wide deduplication, lifespan analysis, automatic firmware updates, and more. 2024 and older models of Synology's Plus series will apparently not be affected by this change, but new devices will have this feature enabled. There apparently is already a workaround if you set up your unsupported drives in an older Synology NAS. Then migrate them over. They will not be locked out of those features, according to Tom's Hardware, which proves that this is absolutely not a hardware feature and is 100% a software lock.
Yeah, that's garbage.
Yeah, that is absolute trash garbage. And yeah, I think that's pretty poopy. In general, I've not been like a huge fan of Synology NASs. I don't know if you remember this, but one of the early things that I was super into, do you remember Windows Home Server?
Yeah.
Okay. I was super into Windows Home Server.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was easy to manage with a full graphical UI. It had a brain dead simple interface for backing up all the systems on your local network. The issue with Windows Home Server, aside from Microsoft abandoning it, was that Windows doesn't really have a great software RAID.
Yeah.
And Microsoft just never saw fit to build it. My understanding is that storage spaces at a certain level, if you are enough of a wizard administrator, might be kind of usable for something, but I have never personally had that experience with it, and apparently neither have a lot of people, but Windows Home Server was super cool. And one of the things that I liked about it was that it gave you all of the benefits of, one of these little NAS boxes that you could then buy from companies like Synology, like QNAP or whoever else. But you weren't locked to that hardware. You could plug in as many drives as you wanted. You could put an HBA in and just expand it. You could add more RAM. You could put in a faster CPU. You could have it do anything you wanted depending on how much performance you needed or how much storage you needed. And that's one of the things that always kind of bothered me about these lockdown NASs. To be clear, I understand why people buy them and I understand why people like them. They're pretty much ready to go out of the box. And we have done videos on them in the past where I've said, yeah, this seems pretty reasonable. But a lot of the time they're not that reasonable. And it appears to me to be fully intentional, where they will, not put an M.2 slot on that one, or they will not have a PCIe slot to make sure that you can't have 10 gig networking on that one that would otherwise totally work as a video editing NAS, for instance.
Yeah.
And so the holy grail for me has always been to have the benefits of a completely custom solution, running some Linux distro or whatever else with, ZFS with whatever fancy patches, and you've got all your virtualization running on it and whatever else, right? So having all the benefits of that, plus the benefits of just an easy kind of interface and a setup wizard and the simplicity that you get from these pre-done NAS boxes. Because right now you either have to learn a whole bunch of stuff that can be fun for some people, and that's great. If you're into that, that's awesome, and I think that's super cool, but not everybody's into that. Or you have to pay a lot of money for devices that appear to be planned obsolescence incarnate, very, very intentionally. And, this is something that has been very apparent to me about Synology's model for many, many years. And now they're basically saying the quiet part out loud by switching to this vendor certified, vendor locked down hard drive model. And
HexOS disclosure?
I already did.
Okay.
Yep. And I was getting to that, is exactly why I invested in Hexos, because I think you should be able to install something that is as simple to use as Synology, so it has that out-of-box experience and app support and ease of use factor, while also having the performance and the flexibility of a DIY NAS solution. And I think they've kind of nailed it, because they're going to have a subscription model for the software, but they will also have a more expensive one-time purchase model, and then you just have it forever, and you can just have whatever hardware you want in your Hexos NAS. Now, just because you have the license forever doesn't mean they will have no subscriptions. Like, they might introduce their own cloud service or whatever.
Yeah,
for
some
backup,
feature that requires
like
constant effort or expense on their end, so it has to be tied with a subscription.
Yeah, but in terms of the base software itself, once you own it forever, you will own it forever. They're apparently doing great, by the way. I am kind of blown away.
What's user feedback?
People have been really understanding.
Nice.
The community, not just the user community, but the developer community has rallied hard around Hexos, because they're just yeah. Like, this is common sense. Why do we not have this? Someone's finally fucking doing it. I'm in. Apparently when we talked about them for the launch, they got just an avalanche of developer applications. And I don't mean like script kiddies who are I want to help develop Hexos. They showed me some of the portfolios.
To work for them. I thought you meant okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant people creating things for the platform.
No, avalanche of applications from people who have portfolios that I was like, what?
Nice.
They could work anywhere they want.
Yeah.
Basically, or just not work or whatever. Wow. Anyway, so yeah, they've got some really talented people working on it now. So anyway, before Hexos was even a twinkle in the eye of John and Eric and the guys over there, my kind of tech tips for the people solution to marry the DIY benefits with the ease of use software benefits was hey, we should do a video on that Synology Hackintosh Hackology or what's it called? What's okay, hold on. The Synology. There's what's it called? Exponology. I don't know if it actually still works, but it was a thing back when we did it. And there were some limitations, right? There was some challenges, it would only work on certain hardware. There were some weird hacky workarounds. And from my point of view, it absolutely was not a complete replacement for Synology. And to be clear, I didn't expect Synology to be stoked that this was something we were making a video about, but we actually got as far as shooting the entire video, and the actual conclusion of it was yeah, if you want the best possible experience, you got to buy the hardware key for the lock here. But this is if you are, kind of willing to deal with some challenges.
You can adapt this thing you might already have.
Then you can install this on hardware that you already have, and it kind of mostly works. And I think it would have actually sold a lot of Synology NASs, because most people wouldn't have been willing to go through this work. But we ultimately never released that video because they came after us incredibly hard.
How did they know you're even making it?
I do not remember, to be perfectly honest with you. But we basically said, hey, yeah, we don't agree that us making a video about a thing that is common knowledge breaks any kind of agreement we would have with you of any sort.
And I don't think it does.
No, it really doesn't. And I wanted to just publish the video. To be full cards on the table here. I just wanted to say F it and just publish the video. But we had other voices internally who felt very strongly that at a somewhat vulnerable time for our company, we did not have strong cash reserves. We were not equipped to
fight,
go to war.
Yeah. And that's what they, unfortunately, and I'm making some guesses about when it might have been, and that might have been the right call at the time. But unfortunately, that's what they want.
Yes, and that's exactly what they want.
These companies use this as a tool. They don't actually want to end up in court with you.
So the compromise that we reached was that Synology would be dead to us at that point. And there have been a couple exceptions to that. I think someone's tech upgrade at some point included a Synology NAS, and I basically went, well, this seems like a bit of an exception. I'm not talking about it.
Yep.
And I'm not going to limit people's options for tech upgrades to brands that I, get along with or whatever.
Sure.
Right. But other than that, I won't work with them. I'd need an apology before I would even talk to them, essentially.
Which has happened with brands before.
Well, yeah, of course, because usually what it comes down to is that, someone who works there has a chip on their shoulder or whatever, and that individual eventually moves on. And, the reality of it is that we're probably going to outlast most individuals in the particular role that they're in. And so we can just play the waiting game. I mean, that's what happened with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
NVIDIA, the entity, didn't want to mend fences. A couple particular people who were ass hurt moved on. And so we'll work with them. And I want to make it very clear, that is in spite of the fact that we are going to continue to cover them in a way that is fair and balanced and call them out when they do things that are wrong.
Have you talked to them since, maybe we shouldn't talk about this on the show, have you talked to them since that video went up?
No. I mean, why would I? There's nothing else to say. I already said everything I had to say. What are they going to say?
Knowing this current crew, I don't think that would make them run, which is cool.
No, I don't think so. I think
which is cool, genuinely cool.
I think that because that's the thing, right? Is I
respect that actually a lot.
That doesn't mean that they have ignored it.
Oh,
They haven't heard what we've said. It just means that
they did. Yeah,
they're looking for a path forward, and they're not going to let this poison everything else that we could possibly work together on.
Sounds good.
And I
can understand that being a tough thing, to be clear, but that's the you can't let relationships influence reviewing.
Well, no, I mean that's the same.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
It's the same reason that we will continue to cover Apple, even though they have never seeded us a device or given us even a briefing or answered a question. But we'll continue to cover them. And I can absolutely not like their arrogance that they think that because they don't have an aligned worldview, they don't need to answer your questions or engage with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally valid. But if they make a good product, AirPods Pro 2s, I absolutely love mine. And I say nothing but good things about all the good things about them, then you have to separate that. You have to separate sort of the corporate culture from the individuals who work there from the product. Those things can all be they can all be very different, and all of those differences can be very valid, but you can't let them bleed into each other as best you can at least. So long story short, Synology, hopefully you can go yourself in the longer term, because it will be as simple as just picking up not overpriced hardware and installing investment disclosure Hexos on it, and I will never have to say your name again, and good luck with that. And especially because you guys think it's cool to vendor lock hard drives on consumer systems, which on an enterprise system, I can at least kind of see it. If you have some I don't know, disc shelf, like giant, like rack-based SAN system or something like that. And the vendor's basically like, look, we've only validated this particular firmware revision and these particular models. And if you put something else in it, look, your warranty's invalid because that's all that we've validated. I think there's at least an argument to be made there, because the operation of that device, that entire device, is covered by the service agreement that vendor has with you.
It's a totally different scenario.
So it is actually their problem if something goes wrong with it. Totally get it. For a consumer who's backing up their photos to a freaking hard drive, no, I'm afraid I don't get that. I don't actually think that that's okay.